Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Let's call my jerk boss Eugene, since his stinginess reminds me of Eugene Krabs from SpongeBob SquarePants, except Krabs is nowhere near malicious. In order to display the full satisfaction of this revenge, I will have to describe a few, but not limited, things Eugene did that entitles him to being a complete jerk. For context, Eugene owns a small company that provides artistic services of some sort and never hired full-timers, which I later learned was due to his stinginess. Initially, when I saw the open part-time position, I thought it was ideal for me as I had external commitments and needed some sort of income. The job offers about $550 per month. I don't live in the US. This is a rough conversation, but it only required me to clock in about 90 hours a month. It wasn't a very good offer, but good enough for me as I considered myself to be inexperienced in the field. Note that Eugene had seen my portfolio and knew my ability level before hiring me. The first couple of months were fine. I worked the hours I was supposed to and got paid accordingly, occasionally extending my shift in my own time due to the nature of the work, but I didn't mind. I guess Eugene saw this as an advantage he could exploit later on during my employment. It is also important to note that Eugene would often ask about my well-being, how did I spend my weekends, and so on. At this point in time, it all seemed like courtesy talk, so I didn't pay much attention to it. He would ask about my previous employment and my reason for leaving, which I answered honestly that their work system was unsuitable for me. This will be important later. Eugene gradually began to grow more impatient towards me, often blaming me for not being able to match up to his ability. Remember when I was inexperienced, thus the pay rate? Well, Eugene had over a decade of experience in this expertise, and he expected me to be at his level when I was only 3 months in. The stress was intense, and I began working longer hours just to keep up and produce work at the best quality I could. I was under the belief that if I worked hard enough, my effort would speak. Even though this was only a part-time position, I overcommitted my time there and took pride in my work. My external commitments were barely scraping by. I was exhausted, but thought I was doing a good job until Eugene spoke to me one day. Eugene pulled me into his office and lectured me on my work etiquette, saying that I wasn't putting enough effort. He was considering letting me go. At this point, I was confused. At this point, I was beyond confused. Did he really not see the efforts I put in? Was I delusional in thinking that I was actually doing well and my work had been improving? I tried speaking up, but he quickly diverted the topic, telling me how he knew the reason why my previous employer hated me. It was because I was lazy and uncommitted. To say I was in disbelief was an understatement. Not only did I believe I did my best with every task handed to me, Eugene had registered my flaws during casual conversations and twisted my words to his advantage. I had no idea how to react and simply asked him what was expected of me. He instantly replied that he would like me to double my hours working for him at the same monthly pay rate. His reasons? It is my fault that I'm not experienced enough to produce quality work. Thus, it should be my own responsibility in time to make up for it. My external commitments didn't matter, he said, as this job was my only source of income and should be kept as priority. It finally dawned on me that Eugene was a narcissistic sociopath who only held conversations so that he could learn a person's weaknesses for his manipulation. Now, if you read my title, you will see that Eugene was not only a narcissist, but only stingy as hell. Eugene is obsessed with maximizing his profits. Any business owner would love that, I agree. But Eugene is down to every cent in immoral and even possibly illegal ways. He would sell a service to a client and upon receiving the deposit, deliver something else. He was smart enough to keep his contracts vague for both clients and employees so that nobody could not take legal actions against them. More than often, his clients would be left to wit's end as it would be too late and expensive to engage another vendor by the time they realized they have been scammed. Eugene would then demand another set of payment to deliver what he had originally promised, overcharging the client on average of 100 to 200% more than what was agreed. Eventually realizing that they had been played, most people would be too exhausted to pursue further action and prayed for the project to be over so they didn't have to deal with his antics anymore. This inaction probably fed Eugene's ego that he could get away playing dirty every time. There are many more things I would like to rant about Eugene, but this is Pro Revenge Sub, not recruiting hell, so most of you would like to get to the good stuff soon. So in my country, employers are required to pay a certain amount of tax for every local employee they hire. While it's not exactly tax, it is obligated by law, and negligence will result in a hefty fine and possibly jail time. These taxes are technically contributions for the employee's retirement funds, which is payable by every employer. Employers can deduct a certain percentage of the contributions from the employee's wages. This law has its own complications since there are a certain group of people exempted from it, such as students or interns. Now Eugene is a classic example of a narcissist who thinks that he's smarter than everyone else. He felt that he was smart enough to evade the law by drafting a contract with vague details to protect himself. He was deluded enough to believe that everyone will believe him as long as he sounded convincing. In other words, he thought of people as sacks of potatoes with no opinion of their own. If anyone was to have a perspective, it had to be his way or the wrong way. I stayed in Eugene's company for about 4 months before I felt too mentally overwhelmed. On the day that I left, I called in to check on my contribution account, and just as I had expected, Eugene hadn't paid a single cent over the past 4 months. The officer on the other end of the line asked if I would like to report this as a case. Guess my answer. A week later, I received an update from the contribution board, saying that Eugene had disputed my case, claiming that I was only an intern and thus exempted from the law. This jerk was playing dirty as a last attempt to steal from me. As I had mentioned, Eugene thought of himself as a smart man and probably felt that the officer would rule the case in his favor since he had world-class convincing skills and his vague contract would have protected him either way. Fine, Eugene. So you think you can get away just like any other time? You must have gotten pretty confident by now. Well, not this time, Eugene. I wrote a 2-page long email to the contribution board officer with every reason and evidence I can find on how I'm not an intern, like Eugene claimed. Knowing his antics, I went the extra mile to research all the exempted groups and wrote every possible reason on how I am not in the category. Excessive? Yes. Worth it? Hell yes. I didn't hear from the officer for 2 weeks, and when I finally did, he informed me that Eugene had agreed to pay my contributions. Remember when I said employers are permitted to deduct a certain percentage from an employee's wage? Well, due to his negligence, Eugene could no longer do that and had to pay the full amount, on top of the fines that incurred along with it. If he had dutifully abided by the law, it would have only cost him a third of what he had to pay. So that's a bit of a tax for you, Eugene. Now that I've gotten back what I was owed, I have decided to move on. But the story did not end there. An ex-colleague of mine, NJ, who is still working for Eugene, told me that during the 2 weeks I didn't hear from the officer, Eugene was busy fighting for his stand by giving every reason that I was an exempt individual. The officer, having seen my email, soon got tired of his nonsense and gave him a deadline to pay up or he will be brought to court. NJ said he had never seen Eugene so defeated before. To top it all off, it seemed like karma had finally caught up to him as he started losing more and more clients due to his unethical practices. The fine came to him when he had no clients that month, so it was a very obvious dent in his bank account. Ultimately, it was not a huge amount, but knowing Eugene's stinginess and ego, I think the damage was enough to qualify for this sub. We've been counting down the days on our kitchen calendar, each X bringing a surge of excitement. My wife Anna had this sparkle in her eye every time we talked about our vacation. Our kids, Lily and Max, were no less enthusiastic, bombarding us with questions about the cruise ship, the ocean, and what they could do on board. Me, I was just looking forward to some peace away from the grind. The day we set sail, the port was buzzing. Families like ours, couples, and group of friends, all carried by a shared wave of anticipation. Our cruise ship was a behemoth. Boarding was a breeze, our cabin was cozy, with a balcony overlooking the endless blue. The first day was a blur of exploration. We roamed the decks, the kids leading the charge. The ship was a floating city with restaurants, pools, and play areas that seemed designated to enchant children and adults alike. Dinner was an affair to remember. The dining hall was grand, and after dinner, we strolled on the deck, the sea breeze cool and refreshing. Evenings were reserved for shows. The ship's entertainment lineup was impressive, ranging from acrobatic performances to live bands. It was during these blissful days that we first encountered Karen. Our path crossed at the pool, where her loud complaints about the noise made it impossible to ignore her presence. "Some people are trying to enjoy a peaceful vacation," she huffed, casting a disapproving look at my kids who were playing Marco Polo a tad too enthusiastically. I brushed off the encounter with a smile and a nod, steering the kids towards a quieter part of the pool. But as fate would have it, Karen seemed to be everywhere we went. At the buffet, she berated the waiter over the temperature of her soup. In the theater, she loudly demanded people in front of her to remove their hats. The kids, bless their hearts, tried to stay upbeat, but even they were not immune to the dampening effect of Karen's negativity. Max, usually so full of spunk, played more quietly than usual, and Lily kept throwing anxious looks towards Karen, as if afraid of becoming the next target. The following day dawned bright and clear. "We should try the rock climbing wall today," Max proposed. "And the water slide," Lily added, bouncing in her seat. Anna and I exchanged smiles, silently agreeing that their energy was exactly what we needed. The morning passed in a blur of activity. Lunch was a cheerful affair, and we decided to spend the afternoon exploring the ship's decks, enjoying the ocean views and the fresh sea air. It was mid-afternoon when the tranquility of our day shattered. I had just stepped out to the bathroom, drying my hands, when a commotion on the deck caught my attention. The sounds were confusing, a mix of screams, gasps, and frantic voices that sent a chill down my spine. I rushed towards the noise, my heart pounding in my chest. The deck was crowded, people running and pointing towards the ocean. A child fell overboard. Someone shouted. Panic set in, my thoughts racing. Where were Anna and the kids at? I pushed through the crowd calling their names, desperate to find them. I found Anna and Lily first, their faces pale with terror, tears streaming down their cheeks. Max was all Anna could manage. Where is he? Where is Max? I asked in panic. Before Anna could reply, the ship's alarms blared, a deafening sound that signaled a man overboard. The crew sprang into action, issuing orders and preparing to launch a rescue operation. I felt as though I was in a nightmare, the kind where you're running but going nowhere. The possibility that my boy is a child in the water was unbearable. In a haze of fear and confusion, we were ushered to the side of the ship, where the rescue operation was already underway. My eyes scanned the water desperately, searching for any sign of my son. Then, amidst the chaos, a miracle. We've got him. He's okay. A crew member shouted, pointing towards a lifeboat where a small figure was being pulled from the water. It was Max, soaked but alive, a life jacket keeping him afloat. Relief washed over me, so powerful it nearly brought me to my knees. As Max was brought back on board, I wrapped him in my arms. He was shivering, scared but brave, a look of shock still in his eyes. "Dad, I am sorry, I didn't mean to," he began, but I silenced him with a hug. "It's okay, son. You're safe now. That's all that matters," I reassured him. As the medical team checked Max over, confirming he was indeed okay, just scared and cold, my mind raced with questions. How did this happen? How had my son ended up in the water? The answers came soon enough. A mix of eyewitness accounts and a review of the CCTV footage, Max had been playing with Lily on a deck. Then the unthinkable. A confrontation with Karen, the same woman who had been a source of tension throughout our trip. Witnesses recounted how Karen, enraged by Max accidentally bumping into her, had lost her temper completely. "I told you I'm sorry 100 times already. What do you want me to do now?" Max had pleaded to her. Karen's response was unbelievable. A moment of anger that led to an unthinkable act. She had shoved Max, the push sending him tumbling over the railing and into the water below. I was left reeling when I learned of this. As the ship's authorities took over interviewing witnesses and reviewing the footage, the reality of the situation sank in. Karen was detained, her actions now a matter of legal consequences. Also, Anna filled in the gaps. She recounted how she'd gone to change her shirt, spilled with ice cream courtesy of a seagull with impeccable aim, leaving Max and Lily playing nearby. As screams had drawn her back, a mother's worst nightmare unfolding before her eyes. She arrived just in time to see the rescue operation swinging into action, her heart stopping at the sight. "And Karen?" I asked. She answered, "Well, she was there, looking shocked maybe. It's hard to say." The security took her aside almost immediately. Anna replied. Back in our cabin, as we sat together, a huddled mess of relief and lingering fear, there was an unspoken agreement that the rest of our vacation would be spent close to each other. Our adventures less about exploration and more about the comfort of proximity. But the incident wasn't done with us yet. The ship's captain requested our presence. In his office, we learned that Karen had been detained. The incident caught in clear detail by the ship's security cameras. The footage was undeniable and her actions were indeed deliberate. Later, a security officer, a man named Lucas, greeted us and said, "We've reviewed all the footage, spoken to witnesses, and there is no doubt about what happened. The woman Karen has been formally charged. She'll be taken into custody as soon as we dock. I'm very sorry your family had to go through this." In the end, our vacation had been far from the carefree escape we had envisioned. But it taught us a key lesson: to not take our time with our kids for granted, showing us how quickly things can change and the importance of cherishing family moments. Since people seem to enjoy my last revenge story, I thought to post a few more from my 16-year career as a carpenter/project manager. I'm going to post a few more in the upcoming days because, well, they are kind of funny and I'm a vindictive jerk who likes to make sure people get what's coming to them. This occurred about 3 years ago. I shut down my framing company to pursue a job as a site supervisor for the development I have been building in. Started with a builder after I had built the last house, managed to get 3 out of 4 of my guys a job with the builder, so they wouldn't be affected by my decision. The 4th guy was a jerk who I never fired because his work ethic was awesome, but had a terrible attitude, bad habits, and was wildly hated by the rest of the crew. He was only there because he made me money. Sorry. First couple months went well. My 3 guys have settled into doing more than just framing, though they were not enthused about certain tasks, but who really like working in a muddy hole or highly physical labor tasks. My guys were always dirty, always wore dirty clothes to work, as did I. Who wants to destroy a nice pair of jeans or a new clean white t-shirt by getting them stained or torn? So our professional look left a little to be desired. After a while, the owner thought our mishmash of a crew needed some cleaning up. I've always subscribed to the analogy, gotta crack an egg to make an omelette, so I wasn't personally concerned about our outward appearances. Our work should speak for itself. I'd save the builder $9 per square foot per house, and I could see he was happy about that. Under my direction, the rest of the trades had increased the quality without any incurred cost, and our houses just looked better than competitors during construction. I get called into a meeting halfway through the week and the owner says, "I am tired of you guys looking like no one owns you. Your work attire should reflect the quality of homes we're building. Here's a bunch of uniforms. enough so everyone has one to wear every day, and then extra in case you work Saturdays. I say, hey boss man, that's a great idea. It'll make my guys feel more included and happier. You've even embroidered their names on everything. That's super cool. My guys were ecstatic. New shirts, pants, steel-toe boots and steel-toe cold-weather rubber boots, jackets, hard hats, high-vis vests, you name it. All name brand, high-quality stuff supplied by the company. It was Christmas in July, until they got their paycheck. Each guy, including me, was deducted $1,357 for uniforms. My lowest paid guy at $15 an hour owed the company money. The next guy made $3.16. Highest paid guy, a cool $57. Me? Well, I received a check less my uniform deduction for a little over $2,500. I made more money building for him than I did managing his site. I was freaking furious. This is where the paycheck comes in. I paid my guys for their deducted wages and then did some research. Guess what? Where I'm from, if you require an employee to wear a certain uniform, you cannot pass that cost off to the employee. It's to be supplied free of charge to the worker. This was also around the time I had been using my personal accounts as suppliers for odds and ends. I called for a meeting, printed out the Labor Standards Act, highlighting two pertinent areas, and explained to the boss not only was it illegal, but they did almost cost my guys their homes. If I hadn't stepped up, they would have been evicted. Child support wouldn't have been paid, and it could have been a lot worse. My boss took this all in and said, "It is not mandatory, that's why you guys have to foot the bill." I said, "Okay, boss man, my guys can't afford to drop $1,357 on work clothes, so I'll have everything returned. Most of it has never been worn. You can return what's still new, and I'll pay the difference." We all went back to work wearing our torn jeans, ripped shirts, and stained jackets. Problem solved, right? Nope. I was fired 2 days later. Since they were my guys, that meant them too. So rather than tell the guys what happened, I told them to roll up all my tools and anything I had paid for, take Friday off, and I'll let everyone know what's going on over the weekend. Started back up framing that Monday for the competing builder. But that's not where it ends. I filed a complaint with Labor Standards, filed a builder's lien on the 15 properties I had been managing for unpaid expenses and waited. When he refused to acknowledge any claim against him, I escalated to lien his personal home. I had done $25,000 worth of work to his home, which was to be paid after the sale, plus an extra 10% for waiting. That really got his attention, as his house was sold pending the closing of the buyer's own property. The lien made it so he can't sell without paying me out first. I ignored all calls except from his lawyer, and he essentially shut down business and blames me for doing so. Long story short, I got my money, but to this day refuse his $25,000 for payment as it lacks the 10% plus 3% per month late charge. He could sell his house, but he refuses to pay me out. Owes me about $56,000. Screw that guy. This is the story of how I got screwed over by a big old tire store and got my revenge. The manager had a very Karen-y haircut and vibe to her, but I still got what was rightfully mine out of her. Back around 8,000 miles ago, I took my Ford Flex, which was in desperate need of some tread, to get new tires. I was a little low on money, so I took it to Big O Tires because I had a credit card for the franchise from buying tires there before. Everyone around will tell you that anytime you bring your car in, they will inevitably find some work that needs to be done to try and get more money out of you. I wish I had known this sooner. I went in and the manager was the one to help price me tires and find the right ones for me. My Flex has 19-inch rims on it, so the tires that go on them are expensive, but I was paying on a card so I didn't care. I found the tires I wanted and opted for a good tire that would last me at least 60,000 plus miles. I asked her to put the tires on and do an alignment after they get them fitted. Then I go sit down in a waiting area and wait for the job to be completed. I'm sitting in the waiting area when a greasy mechanic comes out of the shop and starts looking around. Who's got the Ford Flex? I do. We went to do your alignment and we found that your inner and outer tie rods are bad all the way around and you need new rear lateral arms. It'll cost about $1,300 to do here, but we can do it. You want us to get on that? Me, jaw dropped. No. Well, we can do an alignment on bad parts. Okay, then just give me the keys, I guess. As I'm signing the final paperwork, the manager is stressing to me that the bad parts I'm driving on could destroy my new tires. My friend who was actually working there at the time pulled me aside and told me that they looked like they were wearing down, but that they didn't need to be replaced yet. So I left the store. Fast forward about 8,000 miles later, it is now April. The inside of my tires on the rear was worn down completely smooth. The front tires only had about half the tread life remaining, and I'm still making payments on the tires. When I'm driving down the road, there is a steady noise coming from the tires from being so unevenly worn down. It was around this time I had finally gotten money together to fix my bad parts. So I go to my mechanic who is honest and has never tried to pull the wool over my eyes and will give me a decent price. I told him what the mechanic and manager at Big Old Tires told me, what was wrong with it, and told him to get it fixed and handed him the keys. About 3 hours later he calls me back. Hey, I'm looking at your car and the only thing that was wrong with it was you had a stuck right rear brake caliper. So everything else was fine? Yeah, everything to do with your suspension was in perfect shape. No play in the tie rods. It looks like you just need an alignment pretty badly. Okay, thank you. Will you put a new caliper on there for me? Yeah, I'm on it. If I was you, I'd take it down to the dealership. They do all my alignment and they aren't gonna pull any crap on you like that. Okay, thanks. After hearing that my parts were fine and my tires could have been saved by a simple alignment, I was livid. So I called up Big Old Tires and the conversation was pretty short. I am not going to post the conversation, but to sum it all up, she told me that she wasn't trying to say my mechanic was lying, but that he doesn't have a laser rack or the proper equipment to know those parts are bad. She then goes on to explain in great detail why my parts were bad and try and make me feel stupid. She wanted me to have him replace all those parts and bring it in for an alignment. I told her I'd see what Tony Brown had to say about it. When I pulled up to the dealership, I walked in and told them what happened and what was supposedly bad with my car, and they did my alignment with no fuss. And cheaper. So the next day after I got home from work, I pulled into the driveway of my house and looked at my passenger seat where my ticket was for the alignment I had gotten done. Something just took me over and I pulled my car into reverse, pulled out my driveway, and started heading to the Big O. I called my mom on the way because she knew what I was going through and how stressful it was for me, and told her I was about to go make a show in front of their customers and see where I can make things go from there. She was excited and wanted to listen in, so I left her on the phone with my Bluetooth headphones around my neck where she could hear everything. As I walked into the store, I was feeling nervous but just shoved it all to the side when I saw how many customers there were. At least 7 people in the store are looking at tires or waiting for their cars to get done. I walked up to the front desk and waited patiently for the manager to get done talking with another customer. Hi, can I help you? The front desk employee asked. I ignore her and look at the manager as she's finishing up. Hi, are you the manager? Yes, I am. Hi, I believe I spoke with you on the phone a day or two ago. I wanted to speak to you in regards to the work done to my vehicle. Okay, what's your name? I tell her my name and her employee starts to pull up my file. As she's looking me up, I start telling my story, and I tell it loud enough for all the customers in the store to hear. Well, when I came in here, I was refused an alignment because of bad parts. We can't do alignment on bad parts. Let me finish, okay? I was told I needed to pay $1,300 before they would do my alignment because of bad parts. And $1,300 is a lot of money, so I just took my car home so I could start saving up money for the repairs I thought I needed. Eventually, when I was feeling like I could afford it, I took it to my mechanic who told me my parts were fine. He told me he didn't have the right equipment, so I took it to the dealership, who has the same rack as you. They did my alignment and told me my parts were fine. I show her my alignment paperwork. The sheet shows that before and after of an alignment, my rear left tire was cambered out minus 2.3 degrees. She was trying to tell me before that my tires were worn so bad on the inside because the parts were bad, but it was really just an alignment issue. Let me go talk to my mechanic then. She walks into the shop for about 10 minutes, and I see them walk through the bay doors to go out and look at my tires. She comes back inside and tells me how sorry she is and comes up with the excuse that there were 2 Ford Flexes in the shop that day, and the mechanic that was there that day got the tickets mixed up and my Flex never even went on a rack. She then goes on to say that she will replace 2 of my tires for free and refund me the $40 rack fee I was charged that day. I came back the next day for my 2 free tires and rack fee, feeling like I'd won, but still upset because the other 2 tires I was sporting only had about 50% tread left on them, when they were supposed to last me way longer. I decided to write a review on Google for all to see. It was basically 3 paragraphs on everything you've just read. 1 week later, I received a phone call from Big O, but I was busy, so I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail was basically the manager saying that she was confused why I would leave such a review and asked me to call back and see what we can do to fix it. After I was free, I called her back. Hey, I missed a call? Yes, I just saw your Google review this morning and my jaw dropped. I thought that everything was okay after we gave you 2 free tires and refunded your rack fee. And now you've left this review saying you'll never be back except for your free rotations while they last? What can we do for you to just take the review down? Well, I was upset because I got 2 of my tires fixed. I'll have to end up replacing those other tires well before my new ones, when they should have all been the same tread to begin with. So if I give you 2 more free tires, will you remove the review? We just don't want to have to deal with corporations, and if anyone reads that, it will lose us customers. Yeah, sure, I'll remove it as soon as the tires are on my rims. I'll have them here tomorrow then. So I stop in and get 2 more free tires fitted on my vehicle. I couldn't stop smiling the whole time I was signing the paperwork. The second manager even told me that because I had to come back so much, that she was giving me a free oil change next time I came into the store. I edited my review to say that I had a bad experience, but the managers did what they could to make things right and changed it from 1 star to 3. They asked me if I would still shop for my tires with them, and I told them I would, but you couldn't pay me to go buy tires there again. I took my win and my free oil change and walked right out of there.